There's a United States suicide crisis occurring. In the United States, on average, one person dies by suicide every 11 minutes. On average, more than 700,000 people die due to suicide every year. 47,000 Americans died of suicide in 2017, making it the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Suicide trends over time are increasing. Recent mortality data shows that suicide in some populations is on the rise. The total age-adjusted suicide rate in the United States increased from 35.2% between 1999 and 2018. In 2019, the suicide rate among males was 3.7 times higher than among females. While there isn't one single cause of suicide, there are risk factors that increase the person's likelihood of committing suicide. These risk factors include pre-existing mental health conditions, substance abuse problems, serious health conditions that cause pain, stressful life events like divorce, financial crisis, or significant transition or loss. With risk factors in mind, it is important to be aware of behavioral and warning signs that may indicate someone is considering suicide. These are behaviors like talking about feeling trapped or hopeless, increased or new drug and alcohol abuse, withdrawing from friends and family, showing less interest in activities and hobbies they previously enjoyed, and may start giving away possessions and showing sudden signs of relief. In 2017, veterans accounted for over 6,000 deaths by suicide, which accounted for over 13% of all suicide deaths in the nation. From 2005 to 2017, there was approximately a 6% increase of the suicide rate in veterans. On average, over 16.8 veterans die per day from suicide. The LGBTQ plus community is almost 5 times more likely to have attempted suicide compared to peers. 40% of transgender adults have attempted suicide, 92% of those attempts before the age of 25. LGBTQ plus people who have come from a family who have rejected them are 8.5 times more likely to attempt suicide. Suicide and intimate partner violence are public health crises that are closely linked. In 2020, 23% of domestic violence survivors have attempted suicide. Domestic violence includes repeated physical, sexual, mental, or emotional abuse. Domestic violence is the cause of 25% of female suicide attempts. Females who have experienced domestic violence are 8 times more likely to attempt suicide. If you or someone you know is considering or having thoughts of suicide, depression, or self-harm, there are many lifelines to reach out to. The most widely shared resource is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The hotline was created in 2004 and is a lifeline that offers 24/7 assistance to anyone that is in an emotional crisis or considering suicide. Other resources include the Crisis Text Hotline, a hotline similar to the Suicide Prevention Hotline, but with 24/7 text responses. The Veterans Crisis Hotline, which is equipped specifically to respond to veterans who are 1.5 times more likely to commit suicide than their non-veteran peers. And then there's the Trevor Project, which is a resource offering chat lines and support for LGBTQ plus teens and youth. The World Health Organization recognizes suicide as a public health priority. The WHO released their first World Suicide Report titled Preventing Suicide, a Global Imperative in 2014 with their goal of increasing awareness of the public health significance of suicide attempts, and suicide prevention, as well as making suicide prevention a high priority on the global public health agenda. It becomes obvious that suicide affects everyone in a community. This has caused an outpour of responses within communities both national and globally. September is National Suicide Awareness Month. This raises awareness and decreases stigma and removes the taboo around suicide and depression. It shifts public perception while spreading education and resources to those who have been affected by suicide. An outcry for suicide awareness has been spread through social media. Searching keywords like suicide and suicide awareness immediately pops up resources for someone to contact if the person searching is experiencing a crisis or having suicidal thoughts. The hashtag search also shows people who have been affected by suicide building a community and healing together by sharing their stories and inspiring others. Even celebrities are impacted by suicide and use their status to speak out on the topic. Popular televised events like the Video Music Awards have had groups of celebrities talk about suicide awareness. Celebrities made heartfelt pleas to the audience to reach out for help if they were considering suicide or having suicidal thoughts. Following the airing of the awards, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline reported a 50% increase in call. You may wonder what we as a society can do to help this crisis, but first it's important to look at what has already been done. In 1958, the U.S. government opened the first suicide prevention center in Los Angeles. Later in 1966, the Suicide Research Unit opened in the National Institute of Mental Health. Then in 1983, the CDC established a unit to bring attention to a current increase in youth suicide rate. There are current government programs set in place for suicide awareness and prevention. More Than Sad, suicide prevention education was developed by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and is designed to help educators better understand suicidal behavior in adolescents, including its causes, treatment, and prevention. This educational program is for teaching programs and certifications. Effective August 2021, the state of Missouri has made steps towards suicide prevention and awareness. Senate Bill 515 was passed, which requires all Missouri teachers to complete at least one unit of stress management strategies for students and faculty members. They will also require student ID cards to be printed with a crisis text line and local suicide prevention number. It is important to take steps to prevent suicide and hold people accountable when they have had a significant impact on someone committing suicide. Missouri Representative Mark Ellenbrock is currently sponsoring House Bill 170, which provides that a person may be charged with promoting a suicide attempt or voluntary manslaughter if a person is convicted of abusing such persons and conduct significantly contributed to suicide. The Affordable Care Act improved the scope of mental health parity. This mandated all plans provided benefits for behavioral health issues and moved mental health to be defined under behavioral health issues. People with mental health conditions were more likely to have insurance as a result of the Affordable Care Act, and the entire act established standards and coverage for treatment of mental health disorders. It is important to be seeking the proper help needed for mental health issues because it has been proven that therapy can improve suicidal thoughts and behaviors. In a study done on 150 youth, students were tested for suicide rates and were found to have a suicide attempt rate of at least 77%. These students received 9 sessions with a therapist, and return rates were checked that these students marked their return rates increased from 87 to 92%. So what can you do to make a difference? If you are concerned that someone is at risk, the first thing you should do is ask. Ask if they're okay or need assistance. If you feel like they still need help, encourage them to seek help through a mental health professional. Or share some of the resources you learned in this video, like the National Crisis Line, texting resources, or more local resources in your area.